Hello everyone. Welcome to this English learning video. Today, you practice English using shadowing. Listen first. Try to speak right after. This is active practice, not just watching. You train listening. You train speaking. It's okay to make mistakes. Just keep repeating after me. With time, it will feel natural. Today, we're using the story of Elon Musk, not to admire him, but to borrow the way he thinks under pressure. If you stay till the end, your English won't feel the same. All right, let's begin. Some people build businesses. Some people build machines. And some people spend their whole lives trying to build the future. That last one fits Elon Musk pretty well. This isn't a story about being rich. It's not about fame, headlines, or hype. It's about obsession, the kind that doesn't let you relax, even when life looks fine from the outside. He's been broke. He's been fired. He's slept on factory floors. He's watched rockets explode after years of work. And still, he kept going. Not because it was easy. Not because people believed in him. But because his mind never stopped asking one quiet question. What if this could be better? From early on, his brain didn't slow down. Ideas kept stacking one after another. Not small ideas, big ones. Energy, systems, space. While other kids were just trying to fit in, he was trying to understand how things worked. Why machines fail. Why people act the way they do. Why some systems grow and others collapse. That kind of thinking can feel lonely. It can make you feel out of place. Sometimes, it makes you wonder if something is wrong with you. For a while, he thought that too. But being different doesn't mean being broken. Sometimes, it just means you're early. He didn't care much about being normal. Normal felt safe but small. Predictable, but limiting. What he cared about was building something that mattered, something that pushed things forward. Even if people laughed, even if people doubted, even if it meant failing in public, that restless mindset, the one that never fully shuts off, that's where everything starts. Not with money, not with success, but with a brain that refuses to sit still. Now listen again. Notice the calm pace, the clean pauses. Repeat it without rushing, because this story isn't about speed. It's about direction. Growing up, Elon didn't feel like he fit in anywhere. He wasn't loud. He wasn't trying to be popular. Most of the time, he was quiet. Too quiet for people to understand. While other kids talked, he thought. While others followed routines, his mind wandered somewhere else. Questions kept coming, even when no one around him had answers. He grew up in South Africa, in a home that was not calm. There was tension. There was fear. There were moments that left marks you don't see from the outside. Some people think a hard childhood only damages you. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it forces you to build strength early, before you even know what strength is. He learned to retreat into his mind. Books became safer than people. Ideas felt more reliable than emotions. He read constantly. Science, physics, fiction, anything that explained how things worked, or imagined how they could work. And slowly, something became clear. Thinking was his escape. Understanding systems gave him control. If he could understand the rules of the world, maybe the world wouldn't feel so unpredictable. At school, he often felt misunderstood. Teachers didn't always know what to do with him. Other kids didn't know how to talk to him. That kind of isolation can break some people. For him, it did something else. It sharpened his focus. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't try to win approval. He focused inward, on learning, on building, on figuring things out. There's a moment many people experience, but rarely talk about. The moment when you realize you don't think like everyone else. It can feel uncomfortable, even scary, but that moment can also be the beginning of clarity. Much later in life, this same pattern would repeat. People would doubt him. They would misunderstand his ideas. They would say things were impossible. And just like before, he wouldn't argue much. He would just keep building. One small reminder here. If you're listening to this in English and sometimes feel slow, or unsure, or different, that feeling is not a weakness. It just means you're learning something new. Clarity comes with time and repetition. And that idea, staying with the process even when it feels uncomfortable, that's something he learned very early. By the time he was still a kid, he didn't know what he would become, but he knew one thing for sure. He would not live a small, quiet life. When Elon Musk was still a kid, technology entered his life quietly, not in some dramatic, movie-style moment. Just a computer. Simple. Unimpressive to most people. But for him, it changed everything. At first, it was games, like it is for a lot of kids. Games were fun. They were challenging. They made sense. But pretty quickly, curiosity kicked in. Instead of just playing, he started wondering how the games were made, who built them, how lines of code turned into movement on a screen. So he started teaching himself how to program. No classes, no fancy teachers, just manuals, trial and error, and long hours alone. He didn't learn fast because he was gifted. He learned fast because he was obsessed. Hours passed without him noticing. Mistakes didn't frustrate him. They pulled him in deeper. Most kids used computers for entertainment. Elon used them for control, for creation, for turning ideas into something real. By the time he was around 12, he built his own game. Nothing crazy. Simple graphics, basic rules. But it worked. And then something important happened. He sold it. $500. That number doesn't sound impressive now, but at that age, it meant something big. It meant ideas had value. It meant thoughts could become products. It meant you didn't have to wait for permission to build something useful. That moment stuck. Technology wasn't just interesting anymore. It was leverage. It was a way to shape the world, instead of just reacting to it. Around this time, another pattern became clear. When something didn't exist, he didn't complain about it. He tried to build it. When something was confusing, he didn't avoid it. He took it apart. That habit, breaking problems down instead of running from them, would show up again and again later in life. There's a quiet lesson here. Just for a second. Learning something new feels slow at first. Awkward. Messy. Whether it's coding, business, or even English, the early stage always feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is usually a sign you're moving forward. For him, technology became a language, a way to express ideas without needing approval, without needing to explain himself. And once that door opened, it never really closed again. From that point on, building wasn't just a hobby. It became a way of thinking, a way of seeing problems, and a way of imagining a future that didn't exist yet. As he got older, Elon started to feel something clearly. The place he was in was not the place where his future would happen. South Africa felt limited to him. Not bad, just small. His ideas were getting bigger, but the environment around him stayed the same. He didn't hate where he grew up, but he knew staying there would slowly shrink his ambition, and that scared him more than leaving. So he made a hard decision early. He left home at 17. No big plan, no backup money, no safety net, just a belief that somewhere else, ideas could grow faster. He went to Canada first, partly because of family roots, partly because it was a step closer to the world he wanted to enter. Life there wasn't glamorous. He worked different jobs, physical jobs, hard jobs, cleaning, carrying, doing whatever paid. And here's the important part. None of that made him feel smaller. Work was just work. It was temporary. What mattered was learning. He studied hard, then moved to the United States. That was the real target. The U.S. felt different, more chaotic, more competitive, but also full of possibility. He studied physics and economics. A strange combination, according to most people. Why both? Because physics explains how the universe works, and economics explains how people behave. If you understand both, you can build things that actually survive. While others focused on one clear path, Elon kept stacking knowledge. He wasn't chasing grades. He was building tools in his head. College wasn't about comfort for him. It was about preparation. Every late night, every hard class, every moment of doubt, it all added up. By the time he finished school, he wasn't polished. He wasn't smooth, but he was ready to take risks. And the next phase of his life, the moment he stopped studying ideas and started turning them into companies, that's where pressure really began. After school, Elon Musk didn't ease into adulthood. He went straight into pressure. In the mid-90s, the internet was still new, messy, slow, full of promise but also full of confusion. Most people didn't take it seriously yet. Elon did. He looked at the web and saw something simple. Businesses were going online. Newspapers were confused. And nobody had built good tools to help them. So instead of waiting for a job to appear, he decided to make his own. He and his brother started a company called Zip2. The idea was basic but useful. Help newspapers move their content online. Maps, business listings, local information. Nothing flashy. Just practical. But starting a company with almost no money is brutal. They worked out of a small office. Sometimes they slept there. Sometimes they didn't shower properly. Food was whatever they could afford. This wasn't a startup lifestyle. It was survival. Days were long. Nights were longer. Every small mistake felt expensive. Sales were hard. Most people didn't understand the internet yet. Some laughed at the idea. Some said, "Come back later." So they kept showing up. They fixed bugs. They improved the product. They listened to customers even when it hurt. Slowly, things started to move. A few newspapers said yes, then a few bigger ones. Eventually, even major names paid attention. And that's when something clicked. The company wasn't perfect, but it worked. After a few years of grinding, Zip2 was sold. The numbers sounded unreal at the time. Millions. For someone who had been sleeping on office floors, that kind of money can mess with your head. But here's the key thing. He didn't feel done. The money didn't relax him. It didn't slow him down. It didn't make him comfortable. It proved something. That ideas could become real. That risk could pay off. That building was worth the pain. Most people would have stopped there, enjoyed the win, taken a breath. He didn't, because for him, Zip 2 wasn't the destination. It was just proof that the process worked. And once you know that, it's hard to go back to playing it safe. After the first win, Elon finally had money. Real money. Enough to breathe. Enough to feel like things were finally working. And for a moment, life did feel lighter. He bought a fast car. Enjoyed the idea of success. Tested the limits a bit. Then he crashed the car. No metaphor there. An actual crash. And in a strange way, it fit the moment. Speed without control always catches up to you. But the real crash didn't come from the car. It came from the next company. After Zip 2, he went all in on a new idea. Online banking. At the time, this sounded risky. People still trusted paper checks. Banks felt old, slow, and powerful. Elon thought, this can be simpler. So he started a company called X.com. The idea was bold. Move money online. Make it fast. Make it easy. But building new systems around money is dangerous. Small mistakes become big problems, and pressure shows up fast. The company grew, then merged, then changed direction. And one day, while he was away, the board made a decision. They removed him as CEO. No warning, no slow transition, just gone. That moment hits harder than people realize. Because losing control of your own company is different from failing. Failing hurts your pride. Losing control hurts your identity. For a lot of people, that would be the end. Bitterness, ego, walking away. He didn't do that. He stayed invested, stayed quiet, stayed focused on the bigger picture. And the company kept growing. Eventually, X.com became PayPal. And in 2002, it was sold to eBay. The number was huge. For him, it meant over $100 million. But the lesson was heavier than the money. You can be right about the vision and still lose control of the process. You can win and still feel like you lost. And that kind of experience changes you. It teaches you humility, patience, and how to separate ego from mission. Because after that moment, comfort was no longer the goal. Impact was. And the next thing he chose to build would test that idea in a way almost no one expected. With money in the bank, Elon Musk could have stopped. Most people would have. A nice house, a calm life, no stress. He chose the opposite. Instead of comfort, he picked a problem so big, most people wouldn't even touch it. Space. Not as a hobby, not as a dream, as a responsibility. He started asking a dangerous question. What happens if humanity only lives on one planet? Wars, climate, accidents, technology gone wrong. One planet is fragile, so he decided to build rockets. That sounds simple when people say it fast. It wasn't. Governments had tried and failed. Big companies had tried and failed. Experts told him the odds were terrible. He started SpaceX anyway. At first, it was chaos. Finding engineers, finding parts, finding people willing to risk their careers. On a long shot, money burned fast. Mistakes were expensive. Failures were public. The first rocket failed, then the second, then the third. Each explosion cost millions. Each one made people laugh louder. By the third failure, almost everything was gone. Money, trust, time. He had one rocket left, one launch, one chance. If it failed, SpaceX was finished. The pressure was unreal. Teams were exhausted. Doubt was everywhere. And then, against the odds, the fourth rocket worked. It reached orbit. That moment wasn't about pride. It was relief. Proof that impossible things can work. If you stay stubborn long enough, SpaceX survived. But survival didn't mean safety. It just meant the next challenge was waiting. And around the same time, another risky bet was already pulling him in. Electric cars. Not as a side project. Not as a trend. As a fight against how the world worked. And once again, people said it wouldn't work. Back then, electric vehicles weren't cool. They weren't fast. They weren't respected. Most people thought they were a joke. But he didn't see cars. He saw energy. Oil was limited. Pollution was real. And transportation needed to change. So he got involved with Tesla. Not as a safe investment, as a mission. And then came 2008. That year hit hard. The economy crashed. Banks collapsed. Investors panicked. At the same time, both SpaceX and Tesla were close to dying. Not doing bad, dying. Factories were burning cash. Rockets were failing. Employees were scared. Investors were walking away. He had to make brutal decisions. Put money into SpaceX, or put money into Tesla. There wasn't enough for both, so he split it. Everything he had went into keeping them alive. There were nights he didn't sleep, days where every email felt like bad news. This wasn't stress for growth. This was stress for survival. People around him thought he was reckless. Some thought he had lost control. But quitting wasn't an option. Then, at the last possible moment, something changed. NASA awarded SpaceX a major contract. That one decision didn't just help SpaceX. It saved Tesla too. Suddenly, cash started flowing again. Confidence returned. Time was bought. Tesla still wasn't safe, but it was alive. And that was enough. Slowly, painfully, the company started to prove people wrong. The cars worked. They were fast. They were clean. And people wanted them. What looked impossible a year earlier started to look inevitable. That period left a mark. It taught him something deep. You can do everything right and still come close to losing it all. And if you survive that moment, fear stops controlling you. From then on, the goal was clear. Not just to survive, but to change how the world moves. As things started to work, Elon didn't suddenly relax. From the outside, it looked like success. Rockets landing, cars on the road, headlines everywhere. But the inside of his life was heavy. He worked constantly. Long days, longer nights, sometimes 100 hours a week. That kind of pace takes something from you. Relationships strained. Marriages failed. Time with family disappeared. People like to imagine success as freedom. In reality, it often feels like responsibility, stacked on top of pressure. He didn't hide that cost. He talked about it openly. Because building big things demands sacrifice. And sacrifice is rarely clean or comfortable. There were moments when the stress showed: public criticism, legal battles, mistakes made in front of millions of people. The internet doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive easily. Some people admired him. Some people hated him. Both watched closely. But he didn't slow down. SpaceX kept pushing forward. Reusable rockets became real. What experts said couldn't be done started happening again and again. Tesla kept expanding. Better batteries, faster cars, a real charging network. The pattern stayed the same. Set a goal people laugh at. Fail publicly. Fix the problem. Try again. And there's something honest in that. No perfect image. No smooth story. Just work, mistakes, and iteration. One small connection here, and only for a moment. When you're practicing English, and it feels tiring, that's normal. Anything worth building asks for patience. He didn't become steady by avoiding pressure. He became steady by living inside it. Over time, that pressure shaped the companies, and it shaped him. Success didn't make life easier. It made the mission heavier, because once people depend on what you build, quitting is no longer just about you. And at this point, the mission had grown far beyond cars and rockets. It was about systems, energy, communication, and how humanity moves forward together. By this point, Elon wasn't thinking in single projects anymore. Cars weren't just cars. Rockets weren't just rockets. Everything started to connect. Tesla stopped being only about vehicles. It became about energy, solar power, batteries, storage. The idea was simple, even if the execution wasn't. If energy is clean and affordable, a lot of other problems start to shrink. SpaceX followed the same logic. Reusable rockets weren't about saving money alone. They were about speed, iteration, building faster than anyone thought possible. Then came Starlink, thousands of satellites, global internet, connection in places that had none. Not glamorous, but powerful. Because access to information changes lives. It creates opportunity where there was isolation. And then there was Neuralink, the most uncomfortable idea of all. The human brain. Some people were excited. Some were terrified. That reaction didn't surprise him. The future usually feels scary before it feels normal. What mattered to him wasn't approval. It was preparation. AI was advancing fast, faster than human systems, faster than regulation. If humans didn't keep up, they risked becoming irrelevant. So again, the same pattern appeared. See a problem early. Get laughed at. Build anyway. People often ask why he keeps pushing. Why not slow down? Why not enjoy what's already been built? Because in his mind, comfort is dangerous. Comfort makes you stop paying attention, and stopping means falling behind. There's a quiet truth running through all of this. He doesn't build because it's fun. He builds because he feels responsible. Responsible for the future, for survival, for making sure humanity doesn't get stuck. And whether people agree with his ideas or not, that part is hard to ignore. He never tried to be liked by everyone. He tried to move things forward. Sometimes that means being wrong. Sometimes it means being early. Sometimes it means standing alone for a long time. But if something is important enough, waiting for permission doesn't make sense. That belief, that progress requires discomfort, has guided every major decision he's made. Not perfection, not certainty, just the willingness to keep going when the path isn't clear. And that mindset, more than any product or company, is the real story here. As his ideas became bigger, Elon Musk became harder to ignore. And when you're hard to ignore, people start forming opinions fast. Some admired him. Some criticized him. Some did both at the same time. The attention wasn't always about the work anymore. It was about his personality, his words, his behavior. Social media amplified everything. A single sentence could turn into headlines. A joke could become controversy. A thought shared too early could be misunderstood. People started calling him reckless, egotistical, unstable. Others said he was honest, transparent, too real for a world that prefers polish. Both sides talked loudly. But here's the part that matters. None of this was new to him. Being misunderstood had been part of his life since childhood. Quiet kid, different thinking, unusual focus. This was just the same pattern, on a much bigger stage. He didn't try to explain himself every time. He didn't slow down to manage perception. He kept building. That choice has a cost. When you move fast and think out loud, mistakes are public. Opinions are permanent. Criticism doesn't fade quickly. But trying to please everyone would have meant slowing the work. And slowing the work, to him, felt more dangerous than bad press. There's a strange truth about pushing new ideas. They don't feel exciting at first. They feel threatening. They challenge habits. They expose weaknesses. They force change. And people don't always react kindly to that. So controversy followed him, not as a side effect, but as part of the process. Some days it overshadowed the work. Some days it damaged trust. Some days it hurt. But the pattern stayed consistent. Build first. Explain later. Accept the consequences. That mindset isn't comfortable. It isn't clean. And it definitely isn't safe. But it's how change usually happens. And whether people agreed with him or not, one thing stayed clear. He was still moving forward, even when the noise got loud. Not because he enjoyed conflict, but because stopping was never really an option for him. When people look at Elon Musk today, they usually focus on outcomes. Rockets landing, electric cars everywhere, satellites in the sky, big numbers, strong opinions. But outcomes are the last part of the story. What comes before that is quieter. Long stretches of doubt. Decisions made without full certainty. Working while being criticized. Building while being misunderstood. There was never a moment where everything felt safe, or finished, or fully approved. Progress came from staying in motion. When stopping would have been easier. That's the part most people don't see. The future isn't built by people who feel ready. It's built by people who feel unsure and keep going anyway. You don't have to like every decision he made. You don't have to agree with every idea. But the pattern is clear. Curiosity first. Comfort last. Build before asking for permission. And that pattern doesn't belong only to technology. Learning anything works the same way. You repeat. Before you sound natural. You struggle before things click. You stay with it, even when progress feels slow. That discomfort doesn't mean you're failing. It usually means you're doing the work. This story isn't telling you to build rockets. It's showing you how progress actually looks. Messy, uncomfortable, uncertain, but forward. And sometimes that's enough.